that, on BBC One, Parkinson remembers the time Billy and David popped in for a chat.
Thank you. On the show tonight, two remarkable men, two one-offs. Sir David Attenborough is one of the great communicators of the television age. He made viewing natural history programmes a national pastime. One writer said, like the marvellous creatures he describes, Sir David himself is one of the wonders of the natural world, and I'll be talking to him later. But first, a man who started his working life as a welder in a Glasgow shipyard before embarking on a career as a comedian, which has made him rich and famous, not to mention windswept and interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, Billy Connolly.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought, eh? After all these years.
This is déjà vu.
Absolutely, it certainly is, my word. That's a wonderful suit.
Do you like it?
Bit of crushed velvet,
It's
is it?
crushed velvet, yes.
Lovely.
I find as the years roll by
Yes.
that blue isn't as kind to me as it was. I need something to reflect a bit of colour in my face. I've got the winter plumage on now, you know. But this stuff, you come to the conclusion, if you're me, that do you really want to look like Ronald Colman? Or do you want to wear some clothes and be at the end, be in this bit of the century? Because men's clothes are so drab and beige. And I thought, let's go for a bit of colour. I did this many years ago. You've seen me in various outfits.
I have.
And and it cheers me up, you know. When I put my clothes on, I go, yes! Even in the house, I go, yes! And I wear my slippers. I go, oh, I've taken a sudden love for slippers. The Harris tweed ones with Pirelli soles. You know those, my favourite, I can't find them anywhere, is the ones with the boots with the zips. The trouble is, when you put them on, you never leave home again. It's unbelievably comfortable. Say, hey, Billy, come on, we'll go to Vegas. We'll do this. Nah. I think I'll watch Panorama.
Now, you've lately arrived on these shores, about a couple of days ago, from Australia.
I was from Australia. My favourite place in the world, I think.
Mine too. I love it too. What, jet lagged or what?
I'm very jet lagged. You think it's over, you know. I'll never understand it. I've tried all the tricks, and even who told me about? Was it Bobby Charlton? Jackie Charlton told me if you put brown paper in the soles of your shoes. Right. I've done all that. I just feel like a tube when I do that. There's no cure for it, so what I do now with jet lag is I ignore it completely, and it just comes in and reminds you, and you don't like fall asleep all the time, but somebody will be talking to you, you look bewildered, you know. You just lose the will to live. You know that expression. You know that expression when like David Attenborough he'll be up the Orinoco or the Juba Juba River, and there's guys who've never seen a white guy or whatever, and they're all there in the beige safari suits, right? And the guys, they've that expression. When they pull the camera out, the guys go like that. It's a sort of Labrador. It's an expression that dogs usually have. Well, I get that every now and again. Plus, I've got a disease, disorder. A disorder. I think. I have. And I bet some of you have got it. It's a very popular disease. It's called sleep apnea. I die in my sleep. Now, I always...
How do you know you die?
My wife told me.
Oh.
See, it's one of those diseases, it's just snoring, basically. Although I don't just snore, I go like a normal guy. But then I go... She leaves it, now it can be 2 minutes. She's just about to dial 999 and I go...
You must be fun to live with.
And she told me, well, you don't believe you've got it. And I said, you know, like people say, you snore. You say, nonsense, like you know. Like you're awake when you're sleeping. So you know. But this is a disease that men get mostly. But it affects women. Because they're awake when it's happening. And you don't know. It's like that, what's that disease you get when you're old and daft?
What, Alzheimer's?
Alzheimer's. Yeah. Right. You know what I mean? I hope I get Alzheimer's.
Why?
You know, when I'm old. Because everybody I know who's got it is perfectly happy. It's the people who surround them. He doesn't even know me. He doesn't know me. My guy's going, who are these pricks? Get out of my room. Right. I was reading a book before you could, you know. It's like that. My father, my father was a stroke victim. He'd lots of strokes. And he went a bit doolally towards the end. And my sister was talking to him in the house. I got my father marijuana. You know. I said, here, get into that. Because he was drinking, and I thought, that's bad for you. Here, get into that.
The rest of the days in jail, yes.
Because it wouldn't affect his medicine, you see. The drinking, and he would sit and get bombed and watch horse racing and put on really peculiar bets. Phone the guy. Oh, I want the guy with the blue jersey. Put a fiver in that. Right. Lovely jersey. My sister was talking to him and he went, excuse me, and he went and he got the frying pan out and he had a pea in it. Now, my sister was distraught, but it must be said, my father was perfectly happy. And this should be, well, I've got sleep apnea. And sleep apnea affects your partner. It's a bit like PMS, you know. Women get it and it affects men. You know the kind of thing. So, you know, women get away with murder now when they get that. You can murder the guy and say, oh, it's PMS. Oh, fine, away. An hour and a half of community service. The guy's in the graveyard, isn't it? Right, so I've got sleep and I do this. I went to cut to the chase.
Cut to the chase, because I want the things I want to ask.
Right, I went to the doctor.
I should have known better.
He put a light up my nose and a tube thing down my nose. And he says, no, there's nothing wrong with your throat, nothing wrong with your nose. He says, it's obviously the way you sleep. He said, practice lying on your side and put a pillow there and see if that, and it'll stop you rolling on your back because the problem comes when you're on your back. And he says, a lot of guys now, he says, you get a T-shirt with a pocket in it and put a tennis ball in it and put it on backwards. And so the tennis ball irritates you, and when you lie on your back, and so I said, I'll try that. So I was in Australia and I thought, I'll go for the quick cure. I'll cure myself while I'm away from home. So I bought a rucksack. a plastic one. I said, I'll put a football in it. It seemed sensible at the time. But in the shop, it was all full of newspaper, the back. I said, just leave that in. He said, I'll take it out for you. I said, no, leave it all in. He said, why do you want that? I said, you'd never believe me. Right. And I tried it in Australia, but I kept waking up. I was sort of falling off it. As I was rolling over on my back, I'd plummet to my death. It was a nightmare. So I now do it with an apple. I put an apple in my T-shirt pocket. And in the morning, the apple's kind of warm, and you can eat it before you get up.
Fascinating.
It's brilliant.
Brilliant. All right. Now all right, fine. Now
I'm not getting any better.
No, we've established.
Sorry, I've jet lag and I'm just here.
And you're here. Right. And who'd have thought?
Who'd have thought?
Who'd have thought that since the last time I met you, now you're a film star.
I am a film star of some great standing.
You are. This is true. And
that sounds like a Yorkshire village, doesn't it?
yes,
Great standing.
yes. and Mrs. Brown, the film that's I think it's, I don't know if it's on release anymore now in England. It's probably shortly going to video, I would imagine.
It probably will be soon again with Miss Judi Dench winning the Golden Globe.
That's right. Well, I loved the movie. It was a smashing film.
It's a smashing film, isn't it?
It's great movie. Yeah.
It was a brilliant time. It's a lovely. Judy and I think it's a sort of a modern Brief Encounter. Probably my favourite film of all time.
Oh, you like that, do you?
I love Brief Encounter.
What about those accents? I can't get on with those.
Oh, darling. My wife and I kid on, you know. I used to do this thing. Oh, instead of saying excuse me, I'd say excuse one. You know, oh, excuse one. Right. And then when we're lying in bed, I would say, one loves one. And she'd say, one reciprocates with ardour. And then my line is, one would love to give one. See,
how is Pam, by the way?
Pam's great. She's a shrink now.
I know it's Dr. Connolly.
Dr. Connolly. She gets to analyse me on a daily basis.
She's a sexual psychotherapist.
She's a psychotherapist and she specialises in sexual trauma and she speaks dirty to men all day.
Fascinating job, I bet.
It's a brilliant job.
Does she do any field research with you?
Yeah, she does research on me, but I'm kind of boring sexually.
Are you?
Yeah, I would love to be more weird. You know, I've got a sex life like a pigeon, you know. It's a very quick affair. And then straight into the dying. I always wondered, you know the guys with handcuffs and whips and suits of armour? And, you know, a wetsuit and a fireman's helmet. You'll get used to my little idiosyncrasies, he said. Heating the branding iron in the fire. Be with you in a second, my dear. You know, I couldn't, I'd laugh. The one thing you mustn't do in sex is laugh. I've always found. If you're banging away there, and you're so, you know, the whole thing, for men, the whole thing, and I think it's a strain on men. It's an unnecessary stress and strain. See, we hear about women this and women that, women and women hey, usually from somebody in a crew cut in a boiler suit. Saying, I'm fed up being treated like a sex object. What? I thought you were a plumber. Making wine, man, typical man. Hey, the stress on men to bang away for days. Days! Jeez, you look at your watch, you're sweating, the tattoos are sliding onto your floor. Praying for daylight. And you know, trying not to ejaculate seems to be the whole big. God, I wish I could just do this and snore and die. Right? Men have many methods. Some people think of the FA Cup team of 1953. You mustn't think of sex or poof, it's all. I do the 9 times table. I got to 81 once. I did a lap of honour round the bed.
I was about to go on. I was on a serious line of inquiry. What was it?
Serves you right.
Serves me right. I should know better.
But the
movie, yes, I know. No, I mean...
No, the Brief Encounter.
But, I mean, since then, what's happened to you is that you had lots of offers.
Yes.
And, I mean, about movies.
Do you know, you never get any sexy offers when you're me. One of the lines you'll never hear in your life is, she's shagging the banjo player. Right? It's just, I'm kind of asexual, a non-event sexually. Comedians don't get pursued much by women. Maybe like David Baddiel or those guys do, because they're young, and I used to when I was young. But when you're me, you get a bunch of guys telling you jokes at the stage door. You know, and you really need that in your life. Oh, here, Bill, there's one here about a nun and 3 German shepherds. Clean it up and use it in your act. Well, thanks very much. It's not so good. But the film stuff is getting very. I used to get maybe an offer a year, and it would be one of those people saying, "It's a funny movie, Billy. We haven't written it yet. We're hoping that you would." Just do your thing, you know. We'll write some stuff for the other people, and you come in and just be you, yes. And it's, you know, that kind of crap. But now I'm getting, because of Mrs. Brown, I'm getting really good offers.
Shall we have a look at Mrs. Brown?
Have you got it?
This is a lovely scene. It's a scene at the beginning of the movie. It's where you, John Brown, the Gilly, go to meet up with Queen Victoria, who's still in mourning. And
That's
this
right.
is the first time that you've seen
her. I'll have
her
to get her out of mourning.
Since the death.
Because she won't open Parliament. She just wants to stay in Isle of Wight.
But it's just a lovely scene between you and Judi Dench. Just have a look at this. It's smashing.
Your family sent cards. It was much appreciated.
I'm glad of it.
My husband was always very complimentary in speaking of you. He would have approved, I'm sure, of my calling on you in this way. I trust it does not inconvenience you too much.
I have no family, ma'am. Only my brothers and sisters.
Yes. You have a brother in service here, do you not? I forget his name.
Archie.
Yes. Well, that will be company for you.
Yes. Honest to God, I never thought to see you in such a state. You must miss him dreadfully.
You do not. He. Get him out! Get him out! Get him out! Get him out!
A lot of nice quiet playing there with the eyes and that sort of...
Aye, there was a lot of that, and it was very difficult for me. I'd never done anything like that before. But working with Judi Dench is extraordinary. I'd read a lot of things about acting and that method stuff, and it keeps saying, don't act. Whatever you do, don't act. Be you, be you. Get into the character and then be yourself. Don't be caught acting. I thought, my God, how do you do that? And then working with Judi, she does it constantly and she can instantly do it. You know, you can be having a joke over here because she roars and laughs all the time. And then straight onto the set and she does that. She did that 6 times, that scene. Exactly the same every time. The pathos and everything was exactly that. It was so impressive. She's a genius. And I hope she gets an Oscar.
Is that what you want to do in the future now then?
I'd like to do more. I always want to be a comedian. I like being a comedian. And that's where I make my money.
Sure.
My manager thinks film's an expensive hobby, you know? It's because you don't get much money unless you're, of course, you know, one of the big shots. But I'm not one of the big shots. And so I love doing it. I love the exercise. I love the discipline of it. But I want to be a comedian always till I'm an old guy.
But what's left for you to conquer in terms of comedy? I mean,
I don't really look at it like that.
You don't?
No, I get as much from Shetland as I do from the Albert Hall. Every bit as much, maybe more. Maybe more. But I used to do the seaside in winter. That was always my favourite. Doing Ramsgate and all that in the middle of the winter. And it's just a brilliant thing to do, you know, as you're driving up to the theatre and the foghorns are going at the seaside and it's looking all misty and the people are all huddled up and you go in and it's hot and you go and they're all crying and laughing. It's a magical thing to do with your life.
Is it in your sense? I read an interesting line that you once said. I wish you'd said it to me, but it was to somebody else, where you said that what you are is your ordinary nutter working out his problems on stage.
I do that all the time.
Is there a kind of therapy involved?
I'm usually telling the truth.
Aye.
Yeah. Exaggerated out of all, you know, context completely, usually. But it's usually the truth. I did a thing about my father taking my picture at the seaside. Do you remember that routine where he would get my sister? I could never work the camera. You know, I could never see him in it. He would say, it was one of those box jobs. And he would say, for God's sake, look in it properly. And I'd look, I'd say, oh Christ, I can't see. I could only see myself looking back, you know. And he would be with my sister and he'd say, wait here. And he'd go up and he'd whack me, you know. Now take the bloody picture, right? And he'd go back. And I would cry. I would explain to the audience that I did that yodeling crying. You know that you've probably had children, or maybe you've done it yourself. You know, what's wrong with you? What the hell's that? What are you saying? Well, I was doing it one night and I burst into tears.
Really?
Aye, it was too close. Yeah. I was doing it too well.
On the edge of reality.
I had forgotten to step back a wee bit. Yeah. You must always be, it's like singing the blues. You should be doing it from the outside looking in. Yes. You shouldn't be in there.
Yes.
Inflicting everybody with this.
Well, what about, just finally, because it seems to me that the two of you, and I've got David Attenborough coming in just a moment, one thing you've got in common that you share is an immense enthusiasm for what you do. You never lose that, do you?
I don't.
You never get jaded about what
I have it for life generally.
You do?
In my life in general, I'm an enthusiast. That's why I love America and Australia, the land of the optimist. I love optimism. I loathe pessimism. And it's funny when you come back to Britain, when you live elsewhere, and you put on EastEnders or something. I think, my God, what's wrong with the lighting, you know? God, creeping about, these dull people lurching from one scene, from AIDS to divorce to junkies. You say, come on, lighten up a bit. You know, and I'm a real believer in optimism and showing... And I love to tell kids, I love when I'm in Glasgow and say, listen, you could do this. I know it's a fancy suit and all that. You could do this easy. Because I used to be I lived in a housing estate. You can do it. All you need to do is want it. So they should be telling children to want it. Aim as high as you like. You can get... Americans do it constantly. Australians do it constantly. Should encourage children to be optimistic. Because if you just keep drearying them down, that's the result you're going to get. Because I believe you get what you believe you're going to get. If you believe it, it will happen. I'm living proof. It's the truth, I'm telling you.
A bit of talent involved there as well.
Oh, yeah, but the talent, talent doesn't fall on you.
No,
you have to learn it.
There's a gift there as well.
Well, they used to say that about guys, the football players at school. There was a gifted guys and there was a not quite so gifted. Fine.
Oh, you've got to follow it through.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
You have to practice and do it, and yeah, it's lovely.
Shall we bring the second guest on now?
Aye.
Shall we? In the meantime, Billy Connolly, thank you very much indeed. Television at its best both educates and entertains, and my next guest is its greatest practitioner. One writer, trying to capture his infectious manner, asked who else could stand knee-deep in bat dung exuding enthusiasm. Another critic observed that no one was responsible for showing more sex and violence on our screens than he. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir David Attenborough. On the subject of what you're laughing at.
I should have worn my pyjamas, shouldn't I?
The beige safari suit, yeah. Yes, on this subject of enthusiasm, I mean, you've never lost that enthusiasm, have you, for what you do?
Yeah, but I'm very spoiled, aren't I? I mean, I have a great time, perfectly clear. Just go to all the lovely places, see all the lovely things, things that fascinate you. I mean, the time you're tired of watching a bird of paradise display or seeing 10,000 flamingos or chimpanzees communicating to one another and doing... I mean, that's not very difficult to be enthusiastic about that, is it?
No, I suppose not. Although, I mean, you've been doing it now for what, 40-odd years. You've been bringing this wonderful story to us. you mentioned birds there because that's been your latest venture for the past 3 years. You've been concentrating on your new series, which starts, I think, in the autumn sometime, on the life of birds. What's so special about them? I mean, we take them for granted, don't we, in a sense? We live with them, they're around us.
They're absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah.
And he's quite wrong about pigeons. You know.
Is he?
Not.
The sex life of
The
pigeons.
sex life of pigeons.
Go on.
Aye, well, it's all fancy for a long time, but the act is very quick.
Do you
isn't
know
it?
about penduline tits, if you know what I mean?
Are you offering me something?
The penduline tit is a small bird related to other tits in this country. Lives in Eastern Europe.
Right.
And the male and the female have a little nest, and they mate before each egg, see? And they will lay, the female will lay about 6 eggs. But she knows that if, when her mate sees egg number 6, he will push off and find another girl who he can have 6 eggs with in another place.
Yeah.
You understand? So what she does is that she lays an egg one day and she hides it at the bottom of the nest with a bit of woolly lining.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she lays another egg and she hides that. And the males keep coming back and saying, oh, I need one egg. You know? I thought, I swear yesterday. You know? And so he keeps going. This is true. This is wonderful. Keeps going until finally she has got all 6 there, and suddenly she whips off all the lining. You see, he comes back, and she has meanwhile pushed off because she's found another fella. And the male then says, well, where is she? You know, it's my turn to do the incubation. He's waiting for her to come back to incubate. She doesn't come back. So he says, well, I'm stuck with it, so I've got to deal with the kids because it's better for him to look after. Yes, that's true.
So
You're doing all right, you see.
Oh, the same thing happened to my family. My father thinks I'm an only child. Is it?
Potent mix. So what also too, I was interested to read in the research about another bird you observed in the series, and that's this bird in Japan, in Tokyo, that's adapted to urban living. Well, it's a crow, isn't it?
Carrion crow, yeah.
How
carrion crows are about the most intelligent of birds. I mean, the crow family as a large, by and large, is very, very intelligent. And there's a city in Japan where the city fathers thought to beautify their streets and put walnut trees down one of the main roads. Now, the carrion crow is a tough bird, but it can't crack walnuts. So what it does is it collects a walnut in its beak, and it goes down to the traffic lights, and it waits till they go red. This is true. And he hops down, and he puts the walnut underneath the wheel of a lorry. No. Yes, this is true. And then it sits back and waits for the lights to go green. Traffic goes over, and then as soon as it goes red again, down there and pick up the walnuts. It's not bad.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. And I think it wasn't your film, it's part of your series. I saw that. Is it an eagle that eats turtles? And you carried this turtle up to a huge height, because again, it couldn't penetrate the
Tortoises,
carapace.
yes.
The tortoise. And dropped it from this height, and then came down like a Stuka
right.
dive bomber after it.
And that story was told by some great classical author who Billy will know, but I don't, like Aristotle or someone of that sort.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. Because he tells a story about he was wandering around trying to think of something, you know, how fast the water goes out of the bath or something of that sort. And he was hit on the head by a tortoise. And he looked up and there was this bird. It doesn't say whether the bird was laughing or not, but I dare say it might
Any
have
old
been.
excuse for drinking.
Yeah. But people thought that was a myth, you see.
Yes.
But actually, that's exactly what some eagles do in Greece.
Yeah. What about the business of the technology now that's available to you? I mean, again, I saw an extraordinary, I love these programs, I watched them all, and I saw a lovely program, again, about eagles, I think it was, where they got a camera attached, a small camera attached to an eagle's back. I mean, the technology nowadays has advanced the kind of programs you
well, I mean, you can now take shots in the dark.
Yeah.
That's not such a good thing, really. I mean, I used to think, great, see the shots in the dark.
Yeah.
You know, you can't see anything
Yeah.
Except the camera. Mm-hmm. But so what the producer says is, well, go out there in the pitch dark, you know, and we'll be able to see you, and we'll be able to see if there's a lion or anything, but you won't be able to see. Oh, is this a good idea? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You get your reaction.
It's good for bad jokes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Mind you, the technology these days. I had a nasty time the other day. Well, the other year, we were trying to record a scene with some Indian rhinoceroses. And the idea was, this was in Nepal, and we would be on elephants, on the backs of elephants, and the camera and the recordist would be on one, and then I would be on the other, and then we would go and find a rhino, and then they would take a shot of me saying, no doubt, you know, with a bit of a whisper, you know, there's a rhinoceros. As if you wouldn't know. Anyway, well, we went for about 3 days. We were on a rather skittish female elephant. Hadn't seen a rhinoceros very much. And we went for 3 days and we didn't see any rhinoceroses at all. And on the 4th day, we caught sight of one. And when we caught sight of it, the elephant was so alarmed, she started bucking, and however, so the mahout sort of tapped her on the head and said, settle down. So the cameraman said, right, where you go. And I suddenly realized that this thing and this radio mic transmitter, which I've got on my pocket here, which I had put underneath where I was sitting, had gone. It had fallen off. So I said to the director, the microphone's gone. You can't hear what I said. And he said, well, find it. I said, it's dropped off. It's down in that grass somewhere. And they said, well, find it. I said, I can't find it. Well, it's a little thing like this. How will I find it with a rhinoceros standing over there? And the recordist said, well, you've got the transmitter on it. It'll make a noise. Get off and call to it, and I'll tell you when you're getting warmer and when you're getting colder. It's true. So the elephant sits down, and I slide off the back, and the rhino's over there, about sort of 30 yards away, and I'm saying, hello, hello. And the recordist is saying, warmer, warmer, colder, colder. And finally, we got it. So I said, I've got it. He said, well, don't get back up, do it now. So I had to do this thing. Now, the shot's gone out, actually. It was in the series on plants. And there's, they said, if it charges, they said, climb up the tree. Well, if you see the shot, the tree, I swear, is not thicker than that. You know, I mean, lunatic. However, it was all right. So technology, you know.
You're talking there about encountering animals, and in all this long and illustrious career that you've had, bringing these extraordinary creatures into our homes, you created, I think, the greatest piece of television. I would put in my top 3 or 4, is that wonderful encounter of you with the gorillas. I mean, there's something extraordinary about it. You can't watch it enough. We're going to see it again, because, I mean, you can just play it and play it. And the more you watch it, the more remarkable it is. First of all, let's be reminded of that wonderful moment when you encountered these wonderful people.
Well, I'll tell you the truth behind that story. And the director, I hope, won't mind, because he tells the story himself. When we wrote the script, when I wrote the script, it came in a series called Life on Earth, and I wanted to show that it was very important in human beings to be able to have the thumb and forefinger, so you could oppose like that, because once you could do that, you could certainly strip trees of leaves, but also you could hold tools. So this was the key which led to the whole of human development, see? The opposable thumb. See, so I wrote this, and John said, I'd originally written it for chimps, and John said, I think there's a chance we could get you with gorillas doing that. Because Diane Fossey, who, you know, became very famous, she had habituated these gorillas, and we could get close. So after about 3 or 4 days of crawling around in Rwanda, amongst these giant stinging nettles and mud and celery and all terrible, terrible time. Anyway, we eventually got close to these gorillas, and you could hear them. I mean, there they were, and I came round, and they were just up there. And John said, now go up and give us the stuff about the opposable thumb and forefinger. And I said, well, you know, you mean turn my back? He said, yes. I said, John, they're big, they're gorillas, you know. He said, no, it'll be all right, don't you worry, you know. So I crawled up, and I got quite close, when suddenly that big female you saw suddenly sort of loomed out of this very tall grass and sat alongside me, you see. And she went like that. And I thought, holy mackerel. Is this the moment to talk about the opposable And because I'm, you know, these things, I thought, no, it's not. So she then looked deep in my eyes and then sat back like that. So I sat back and I thought, what do I do next? When suddenly there was a weight on my feet. And that was the shot when those little things came. And they started undoing my shoes. See, so I thought, well, this is not the moment either. And this went on for, it seemed like 10 minutes. I mean, it was just miraculous. And I was in seventh heaven. And finally, the old girl got up and sort of, you know, strolled away, and her kids left. And I went back, sort of like though I was on cloud 9, as you can imagine. Yeah. And I went back to the crew, the camera crew, Dickie and Martin and John, the director. I said, God, wasn't that absolutely fantastic? And John said, but you didn't say anything about the thumb. I said, well, yeah, I know we had all this marvellous material. He said, well, we didn't really shoot any. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I didn't want to run out of film, you know. You were going to go on about the thumb and forefinger. And it was only after it'd been there for about 10 minutes that Martin, the cameraman, said, look, why don't we take just a few shots of what's going on? You know, it'll make the boys in the cutting room laugh. So, so we didn't get it at all. Forgive me, John.
Does that remain, for you, the moment that kind of justified the entire business of observing animals? And
oh, it was. I mean, it's simply in a class by itself. I mean, it was just it's a different experience. I mean, I've never experienced anything like it, and I will never experience it again. And the reason is that gorillas and chimpanzees are so like, well, I said all that in the film, but they are like us, and you actually really felt that you were communicating something. Now, you can't communicate with an earwig, you know, and you can't, you really can't, I don't think you can communicate with, I don't know, well, with anything much, really. I mean, people will communicate with dogs, yes, but somehow the whole business of being a kind of primate, you understand between you two. And so that was just miraculous, and it's just an unforgettable moment in my life, which I will never forget. I'm not being allowed to forget it because
no, should you be? Because I mean, anybody who's ever watched television, I mean, what is the everlasting appeal, do you think, with the public? I'm talking now, of the kind of program that you do? Because you see, they're not just watched by a few people; they're watched by a lot of people.
Well, they're huge. They're a marvellous thing to be able to turn on your television. And in between all these road accidents and wars and politicians and advertisements and nonsenses and odiousness, suddenly you see something which is amazing, very often extremely beautiful, unpredictable, full of drama, and above all, it's true. I mean, it's, you know, I mean, no one's conning anybody. This is actually reality. There's nobody making it up, nobody varnishing it. This is what goes on. These other things have life. The one thing that we share with them, this mysterious thing that nobody can identify. We simply don't know what it means, we don't know where it comes from, but they have it and you have it.
So by understanding them better then, you're beginning to understand perhaps the great mysteries about why we're here, who we are, what are we doing?
I don't know if I knew the answers.
No, I'm not saying, but
well, what you do, at least what I do, is I don't look at animals because I think, oh yes, I should be wiser about myself if I look at animals.
Yes.
I should learn. I don't believe that.
No.
What is fascinating about animals is to see how a centipede, a spider, a frog, a bat, a whale, and you are all faced with the same problems. How to find a mate, how to find food, how to raise the kids. I mean, we all have those problems. And what is marvelous about natural history is what you see is that there is an infinite number of different ways of solving those problems. That's what makes natural history fascinating to me.
The other thing that intrigues me about you too is that you're a scientist, and you go out and you apply a scientific mind to observing the natural world that we live in. But at the same time, I think you're a romantic as well. Is there a paradox in the two? Can a scientist be romantic? Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Of course. I mean, that's why people are scientists, because they are enthralled by the way the brain works. Fascinated to know how it is that the world came to be the shape that it is, and animals work in the way that they work, and that we work in the way that we work. And that is romantic. It's extraordinarily romantic. I mean, the most romantic thing I remember as a child, age 7, hitting a rock, seeing it fall open, and finding a perfectly preserved shell, beautiful, glistening, shiny, of a kind that you've never seen before in your life. And the chap who's with you says, that shell is 150 million years old, and your eyes were the first ever to fall upon it. Now that's romance, isn't it?
Certainly is. Yes, of course it is. It's extraordinary.
Great.
Great.
I love that. I'm hooked on this stuff, you see.
Are you?
If I had my way, that's all I would watch on television. I absolutely love it.
But you did your share of going out, didn't you? Just not doing the same thing as Sir David, but you went out and you lived in the Arctic Circle for a while.
I did. I lived there for 10 days and nights. The film crew would film me in the morning, and then they'd bugger off about 12 o'clock and leave me on my own. And there was an SAS guy. He was down at the sea watching for polar bears. They come in that direction, and there were some mountains behind me, and I thought, well, what about albino grizzly bears, you know? but they gave me a gun, and I would never shoot a polar bear. And he said, well, if you aim right in the middle of the polar bear, and if it's going to attack you, just move slightly right and shoot one past his head, and he'll get the fright of his life and stop. And I thought, and I believed him. I never had the opportunity to try, but I loved it being completely. I was like the only man on the planet. I would go for walks, you know, and I was the only man on Earth. It was the best time of my life, in total silence.
And you took all your clothes off, I saw that.
I did. I took my clothes off. I always take my clothes off.
Do you?
In every film I do, I take my clothes off. Yes.
Well, I don't.
And I look like porridge with hair on it, you know.
I look like porridge without hair on it.
We have a...
Nor do I.
We have actually...
Some people have sugar.
I don't know if I can break up this meeting. Actually, I was going to show you actually in the spot I did with you actually about your nudity, your propensity for nudity. Oh. And this is a shot from.
Oh,
hello!
What a beautiful creature!
That's a shot from Mrs. Brown. Isn't
There's
it?
something about nudity that's undeniable. You know, it's just funny. Everybody's got a funny bum. You know, even these bronzed Adonis guys, when they run, the bum's a funny thing. And it just takes, it's lovely. And now I insist on it and dancing. You know that silly dancing when you make it. It's such a freeing thing.
This is a new development.
Yeah, no, it's over the past few years. Oh, and Jeremy Irons told me, you know, I did it in Orkney around those standing stones. There's nothing else to do. Well, not in Orkney, but with the standing stones, remember what you're supposed to do. You know, and there's a notice that says, it is thought that perhaps, well, that means you don't know what it is, do you? And I think you should throw that notice away and just put, We don't know what this is. Try and leave it the way you found it. And I thought, well, let's dance round it. I mean, it must have been for something. It was probably for dancing round.
Probably for
so I
charity.
danced round it naked. But Jeremy Irons was filming there, and I met him. We had a holiday together in Scotland, and he said, "You'll never be. The locals are doing it now." They go up with the wee video camera. They go, "Right, there's no traffic. Go for it, John." So probably. Yeah. So probably in 20 or 30 years or 50 years, the guys who follow you around, they'll be up there with the camera saying, "This is a quaint custom, goes back thousands of years." The dancing round the stones, nobody knows why.
Are you worried, the two of you, that in this phrase now, dumbing down, there's been in television, that the kind of programme that you do will suffer?
Well, I hope not, and believe not. I certainly don't think that the BBC will dumb it down. I mean, if public service broadcasting doesn't do that, what's the point of having public service broadcasting?
But public service broadcasting has changed since you were at the BBC.
Yes, it has. But and there are a lot of other competitors, and fine. I mean, that's our job, is to deal with the competitors coming up from satellites and along through cables and so on. So a public service broadcasting organisation like the BBC has to offer something that no other network can offer. And doing serious things with some undumbed down content is the one thing it can do. And when it gives that up, then I would think that it hasn't got much reason to continue to exist.
Absolutely. I think the BBC is outstanding. And all the fights to make it have adverts and all, and cheapen it and all that, I would fight it all the way. And the other thing, apart from educating and entertaining people that everybody thinks the media's for, the motto here is a nation shall speak peace unto nation. And if you know, and I think that's a great theme to go with. You know, I mean, our game show is speaking peace unto other nations. You know what I mean? Are throwing green goo over famous people in children's television. I think we should fight to keep the beat. There's a programme on public service broadcasting in America, and it's every Wednesday. It's a big debate, and it's great. It might be abortion or whatever. And they got all the experts, and they all have a huge fight, great debate. But at the beginning of the programme, the head of the station comes on and says, "The whole point of this programme is to make the cut and thrust of debate so severe that the only escape is by thinking." And I thought, yes, yes, we are not alone, you know. Yes. And you know, I don't think you should be teaching and wagging your index finger at people all the time. No. But you should teach. I think that's to teach and entertain at the same time is such an extraordinary thing.
That's what Sir David's done. He didn't wag his finger at all. I mean, we want to tolerate him for 40 years wagging his finger at us.
Aye.
No, but I mean, onward and onward. I mean, you've got this new series. I mean,
well, as long as I can keep vertical and keep moving, people push me in front of things. Yes. Yeah, because I mean, it's the best job in the world, isn't it? Really.
Well, you make it that. Sir David Attenborough, thank you very much indeed. Sir David. Thanks to Billy Connolly and Sir David Attenborough. Next week, my guests include Gary Lineker and Patricia Routledge. Until then, from all of us here, a very good night. Good night.
In fact, the pick of Parky next week is Robbie Williams, Ewan McGregor and Rory Bremner. That's next Friday at the same time, 10:20 on BBC One.